Our next guest, we're happy to have on, Associate Professor of International Relations at the Norman Patterson School of International Affairs, a former national security analyst, and we should mention her book. I call it beach reading. Stand on guard, reassessing threats to Canada's national security. Put down that Harlequin romance novel and learn some things, will you? At the beach this year. She is Dr. Stephanie Carvin. Thanks very much. You know, like the Humidex can be 40 and you can be getting some sun. And I still think you can learn more about threats to our national security with your book. I think that.
You know, I'm thinking that, you know, the next book should definitely be some kind of novel. I should probably try and get some kind of, you know, procedural romance in there and then, you know, try and explain how state-owned enterprises, you know, pose national security challenges and the need for a geoeconomic strategy.
Oh, yeah. You and I haven't met in person yet, but I know you like the show. Write a character based on me. I'll read it and then on air try and figure out what character I am. I'd be into that.
Where this is going?
Oh, I don't know. And forget the Harlequin romance aspect. You can do I'm not a Fabio type. You couldn't put me on the cover of those things. Then again, a lot of women found him gross. Okay, we're off track. This news comes down last night, and we wonder about it. And this is such a different case. I think it's really important, even for people sort of coming in from a layman's perspective on this. This is not a case similar to the two Michaels. Like those are their own kettle of fish in essence, because they happened after the Meng Wanzhou capture, if you will. This happened way back in 2014. This drug conviction.
Yes. So this is an individual who was convicted, I believe, of trying to smuggle meth into Australia. He was arrested in 2014 and convicted in 2015. Now, what's normal practice? And I just want to, you know, clarify for your listeners. I don't consider myself a China legal system expert, but what we do know is that it's very common for foreigners who are, you know, given sentences to appeal those sentences, and often they're, you know, basically expelled from China, never to return, and they kind of get off. And that was normal practice. And that was the process that Mr. Schellenberg was involved in 2019. But unfortunately, his appeal happened after the Meng Wanzhou arrest. So you're right. This is not, you know, a case where, you know, the two Michaels were kind of picked up off the street and accused of espionage. This is someone who actually is facing what appears to be a legitimate criminal charge, but has had his sentence not reduced, as had been normal practice, but actually augmented, and in fact now faces the death penalty. He appealed this sentence, and you know, we found out last night that appeal has been rejected. Now, it's not the total end of the road for Mr. Schellenberg. There still has to be reviewed by the Supreme People's Court of China, I believe, and that's you know, something that you know is so, you know, it's not an automatic death sentence yet, but there's no reason we should believe that, you know, the outcome will be any different in the next stage of the legal process.
That said, it's a big step forward, isn't it, to push this along and actually kill Mr. Schellenberg. You know, a death sentence would think you're leading to that eventually, but you do wonder if at a time when tensions are so fraught and Meng's case is still sitting there almost at its last leg in terms of the stay in proceedings, it'd be really surprising if they expedited the process and actually killed him, wouldn't it?
It would be very surprising. I strongly, our ambassador, we saw him speak, you know, what was yesterday morning in China and late last night here in Canada. And he basically is tying these two cases together, right? We know that the cases of Mr. Schellenberg and the two Michaels and actually some other detained Canadians are very much tied up with the fate of Meng Wanzhou. That process is ongoing in BC as we speak. There's trials going on. Right now, her legal team, you know, perhaps somewhat ironically, is arguing abuse of process, that, you know, the way she was detained at the border violated her rights, according to the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. We can, there's a lot we can say about that, but that's what's happening right now. So the fact that, you know, China is having these verdicts at the exact same moment that we're seeing Meng Wanzhou, go through this process is not a coincidence, certainly. If there is a small, and I mean the thinnest of silver linings to this, it's that if there is ever going to be some kind of deal between China, the United States, and Canada, whereby, Meng Wanzhou agrees to a plea agreement where she admits a certain level of guilt to a lesser offense and is then, pleads guilty and then is sent back to China, those convictions have to be in place, right? I mean, what we saw in another sad case, the Garrett family, around 2015, was that, these were two individuals who were detained shortly after Canada arrested a Chinese spy who was being convicted of, who was charged with espionage in the United States. Right thereafter, two Canadians were detained, right? We've seen this happen before. Now, before they can be released from China, usually they have to be fully convicted. So, again, the thinnest here of silver linings is that if this process is moving along, it does mean we are getting closer to some kind of resolution. But what that resolution is very uncertain. And China in 2015 is very, very different from China in 2021. So we don't know if it could potentially have that ending. But we do know that at least having convictions would at least allow some kind of deal to be put in place and hopefully for all the Canadians to be released at some point, or at least to have the death sentence taken away.
Yeah, or commuted. Dr. Stephanie Carvin joining us, Associate Professor of International Relations at the Norman Patterson School of International Affairs. What is your expectation later this week, if you have one, to forecast what the news could be surrounding Michael Spavor?
Yeah, I'm not particularly optimistic here. It's, this is an individual he's actually being detained in the north of China, close to the North Korean border. And so he had a one-day trial in March, kind of out of the blue, a one-day trial in March earlier this year. There was no verdict given then, so we are expecting the verdict apparently this week, sometime tomorrow. And yeah, I mean, I am not particularly optimistic. I think that the fact that it was a one-day trial, the fact that, let's be honest, it's not a free and fair process. We're talking about a criminal justice system that has a 99% conviction rate. So, if all that to go by, I don't think that we should have a lot of expectations. But that being said, hopefully, again, the thinnest of silver linings here is that as this legal process works its way down the road, hopefully, if there are convictions, that would at least allow for some kind of deal to be put in place, which I honestly think is the only way we're going to get out of this at this point. It's either going to be Canada's going to extradite Meng, but I think that's many years down the road because of all the appeals that she has, unless she decides to give that up. Or if, somehow, the courts agree with the abusive process. That could be another kind of game changer here. But it's a kind of sick form of progress that we have when these convictions are in fact made, that at least it's something that, it brings us closer to an end game, whatever that end game is. And then we can kind of try and go from there.
Stephanie, I got about 60 seconds. I'm curious to know, once we get an election call, which we're all expecting, it's hard to believe that this could rise to the top of the list. We've got a pandemic. We've got economic issues. We've got all the truth and reconciliation issues with Indigenous communities. That said, Erin O'Toole has hammered Justin Trudeau a few times. So has Jagmeet Singh on his handling of China, on his handling of the two Michaels. Is there any, are there political points to be scored by pointing at Trudeau, or can Trudeau just fire back to them and say, honestly, guys, what would you do to make this better? It's a very difficult situation for any leader of a country right now.
It's interesting the extent to which the Conservatives have put this China issue at the center of some of their central criticisms of the Liberal Party. Traditionally, foreign policy does not figure very much in elections or national security. But I mean, we're dealing with a rising power. I think, if you look at the kind of popularity of China in Canada, it has absolutely plummeted in the last, 3 to 4 years. So, yeah, I mean, I think there is a possibility to score some points here. Is it going to be the thing that wins the election? No, I don't think it is. I don't think it's at the forefront of the minds of Canadians, but it may be just something that, certain Canadians that are fed up with, the Trudeau government may, in fact, motivate them to vote against the Liberal Party. we'll see what happens. But again, I would just say that like foreign policy traditionally has never really been the centerpiece of any political party's platform.
Her book is Stand on Guard, Reassessing Threats to Canada's National Security. Dr. Stephanie Carvin, thanks for the time as always. You're a great guest.
Thanks so much.